It was a peaceful day on Earth when the first signs of the Galactic Empire's arrival were noticed. At first, people on the streets, in their homes, and at work didn't think much of it. They believed it was just another unusual space phenomenon, maybe a comet or a distant asteroid passing by. However, that all changed when a massive fleet of alien ships suddenly appeared in Earth's orbit, blocking out the sun. The ships were enormous. Their dark, sleek shapes cast long shadows over the planet, creating a chilling sight. News stations quickly began to broadcast images of the fleet, and soon, millions of people around the world stared up at their screens in fear and disbelief. At the United Nations in New York, the leaders of Earth gathered in emergency meetings. Representatives from every nation were on high alert, unsure of what was happening. On one side of the room, Earth's top military officers and strategists began to discuss possible responses. On the other, Dr. Elena Carter, a scientist and strategist known for her calm under pressure, had a different idea. "We don't need to panic," Dr. Carter said, her voice steady. "What we need is to send them a message, a clear message. We can show them that Earth is not weak and that we will defend ourselves." Her suggestion was met with silence. Some people in the room believed that the Empire's fleet was too powerful for Earth to stand a chance. Others thought that negotiating with them was the only option. But Dr. Carter's words rang with a strange confidence. She was certain that Earth could survive if they worked together. She quickly began to gather data, pulling up information on Earth's most advanced technologies, hidden technologies that many people did not even know existed. Human ingenuity had always been a source of surprise, even to their own people. Now it was time to show the Galactic Empire what humanity was truly capable of. Back in the capital of the Galactic Empire, Vrilok, the fleet commander, stood before a large holographic map of Earth. His eyes were cold, and his expression was filled with arrogance. He had overseen the destruction of many planets in his long career, and to him, Earth was just another world to conquer. He believed that humanity was nothing more than a primitive species, unworthy of standing in the way of the Empire's expansion. "Send them a warning," Vrilok ordered his communications officer. "Tell them that we will take their planet, whether they resist or not." The officer hesitated for a moment. "Sir, the humans have sent us a message," he said, showing Vrilok a video transmitted from Earth. The message was simple. Dr. Carter's voice echoed in the cold silence of the alien ship. "This is Earth," she said. "We don't seek war. But if you choose to attack us, know this: we are stronger than you think. Leave our planet, or face the consequences." Vrilok watched the video with a mix of amusement and disdain. He scoffed at the thought of humans posing any serious threat. To him, Earth's message was nothing more than a desperate plea from a species about to be wiped out. He had no idea that this message would become the first warning of many to come. As the Empire's fleet prepared to begin their attack, Dr. Carter continued working tirelessly in her underground lab, secretly working on humanity's last line of defense. She knew that this would not be easy, and the world would soon face a difficult choice. Earth was on the brink of a war with a galaxy-spanning empire, but humanity's strength was not in its weapons alone. It was in its will to fight for survival. The tension on Earth was rising. People watched the sky, waiting for the first strike, not knowing what the future held. But in their hearts, something was growing: determination. Humanity was ready to stand together, united in the face of the greatest challenge it had ever known. They had received their warning, and they would not go down without a fight. As the weeks passed, the Galactic Empire's massive fleet remained in Earth's orbit, a constant reminder of the threat facing the planet. People around the world were anxious, but they were also beginning to rally. The Empire's commander, Vrilok, had underestimated Earth's response. He believed the human race was weak, their technology far behind that of the Empire, and their military forces incapable of putting up any real resistance. From his command ship, Vrilok watched as Earth's leaders argued among themselves. They knew that their planet was at a crossroads. Many believed that surrender was the only option, but there were a few, Dr. Elena Carter being the most prominent, who refused to give in. She was determined to prove to the Empire that humanity had more to offer than they realized. Dr. Carter had been working tirelessly in her secret lab, deep beneath the surface of the Earth. She had gathered a group of top scientists and engineers, many of whom had been working on projects that were far ahead of their time. Technologies that the Empire would never have imagined were already in the hands of Earth's brightest minds. "We don't need to play by their rules," Dr. Carter said one evening as she addressed her team. "We're not like the other planets they've conquered. Our strength is in our creativity and our ability to adapt. We will use that to surprise them." Her team nodded in agreement. They knew that they were humanity's last hope. The Earth's military, though formidable, was still no match for the Empire's fleet in terms of size and firepower. But Dr. Carter had a plan that depended on the one thing the Empire had failed to consider: human ingenuity. Back in the Empire's command center, Vrylock chuckled as he reviewed the data Earth had sent them. The humans were trying to negotiate, trying to plead for peace. It was laughable to him. Why should the Empire waste time negotiating with a species that was clearly inferior? "They think they can stop us with a few fancy weapons," Vrylock muttered to his officers. "We'll crush them in no time." His officers, however, began to feel uneasy. They had seen countless civilizations fall before the Empire's might, but something about Earth felt different. There was an energy in the air, something that made them question their commander's confidence. But Vrylock dismissed their concerns. "Don't let them distract us," he said sharply. "We'll make an example of Earth, just like we did with the others." On Earth, Dr. Carter's team worked around the clock. They were designing a new kind of weapon, one that could counter the Empire's advanced technology. It wasn't just a weapon of destruction. It was a weapon that used the Empire's own arrogance against them. For years, Earth's scientists had been working on harnessing the power of natural resources in ways that no other species had thought of. Now it was time to put that knowledge to the test. Captain Ryan Hall, a decorated ex-military pilot, was brought in to lead a special team of operatives. They were tasked with infiltrating the Empire's ships, gathering intelligence, and perhaps even sabotaging their systems from the inside. It was a dangerous mission, but Captain Hall had never shied away from danger. He knew that Earth's survival depended on their ability to strike at the heart of the Empire. "We can't let them get too comfortable," Captain Hall said as he prepared his team. "The longer we wait, the more powerful they'll become. We need to show them that Earth is not a planet to be conquered. We're going to send them a message." The Special Forces team, equipped with advanced tech and human-made gadgets, set out to board one of the Empire's ships. As they moved under the cover of darkness, they knew that their mission could be their last. But they were driven by one thing: the survival of their world. They couldn't afford to fail. Back on Earth, the world's citizens waited anxiously. They could feel the tension in the air as their leaders prepared for what was to come. Dr. Carter's message had been clear. Humanity was not going to give up without a fight. They would use their creativity, their willpower, and their determination to face the Empire, no matter the cost. Vrylock, meanwhile, was growing impatient. The warning from Earth had been ignored, and now the Empire was preparing to launch the first wave of attacks. Earth had refused to surrender, and that was something Vrylock couldn't forgive. He was determined to teach the humans a lesson they would never forget. What Vrylock didn't know was that he had already underestimated them. The human spirit was stronger than any weapon, and the will to survive was more powerful than any empire could ever imagine. The Galactic Empire's fleet had lingered in Earth's orbit for weeks, but now, the moment of action was approaching. Vrylock, commander of the Empire's forces, stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring out into the vast emptiness of space. He was confident, perhaps too confident. He believed that Earth was nothing more than a small, weak planet with no hope of surviving an invasion. To him, it was simply a matter of time before the Empire crushed humanity. But deep inside the heart of Earth's resistance, Dr. Elena Carter and her team were finalizing their plan. They had been working in secret, creating new weapons and technologies that would give humanity a fighting chance. The world's military forces were on high alert, prepared for the worst, but they too had been inspired by Dr. Carter's determination. Earth was not going to go down without a fight. Dr. Carter sat in her underground lab, her eyes glued to the computer screens. She had worked tirelessly, analyzing every piece of information they had gathered from the Empire's ships. Now, the weapon she had designed was ready. It wasn't a weapon of mass destruction, at least, not in the way the Empire might expect. It was something far more dangerous, a weapon that could disrupt the Empire's control over their fleet, turning their own technology against them. "We've got one shot at this," Dr. Carter said, her voice steady but filled with urgency. "If we don't act now, the Empire will launch their attack, and Earth will be lost." Captain Ryan Hall, the leader of the Special Operations Team, was already in motion. His team had successfully infiltrated one of the Empire's ships and was now working to disable their communication systems. The Empire's fleet was vast, and their ships were heavily armed, but they were not invincible. The humans had already discovered weaknesses in their systems, weaknesses that they intended to exploit. As the Special Forces team moved through the corridors of the alien ship, Captain Hall's mind raced. They had one chance to complete their mission. If they were caught, there would be no escape. Yet, despite the danger, he knew they couldn't afford to fail. Earth's future depended on this mission. Back on Earth, the atmosphere was tense. People watched as the sky darkened, and the first signs of the Empire's attack began to take shape. The massive fleet in orbit had begun to move, and it was clear that the Empire was preparing to strike. The moment everyone had feared was upon them. Vrylock stood on the bridge of his ship, watching as the fleet's weapons came online. "Prepare to fire," he ordered coldly, his voice unwavering. He was ready to show the humans just how powerless they truly were. As the Empire's ships aimed their weapons at Earth, something unexpected happened. The communication systems on Vrylock's flagship flickered and then went dark. His officers scrambled to restore them, but it was no use. The Empire's entire fleet was suddenly out of contact with one another. For a brief moment, the Empire's forces were disoriented. That was the moment Dr. Carter had been waiting for. With the Empire's fleet temporarily paralyzed, Earth's forces sprang into action. The weapon that Dr. Carter had designed was working. The disruptor pulse had scrambled the Empire's communication systems, causing confusion and chaos among their ships. For the first time, the humans had gained the upper hand. Captain Hall's team, still inside the Empire's ship, received the signal they had been waiting for. The communication blackout had created an opening for them to complete their mission. They moved quickly, planting explosives on key systems that would further disrupt the Empire's operations. As the team made their way back to the escape pods, Captain Hall glanced at his team members. They had done it. They had successfully sabotaged the Empire's ship and given Earth a fighting chance. Outside, the world watched in awe as the Empire's fleet seemed to falter. The massive ships that had once seemed unstoppable were now scrambling to regain control. Earth's forces, though still outnumbered, had seized the moment. Their resistance had proven to be more than just words. Vrylock's frustration grew as his fleet struggled to recover. "How is this possible?" he growled. "These humans should have been wiped out by now." But the truth was clear. Humanity had surprised him. They had taken the Empire's first strike and turned it into an opportunity. The humans were not as weak as Vrylock had believed. They were resourceful, determined, and capable of far more than the Empire had ever imagined. On Earth, Dr. Carter watched the unfolding events with a mix of relief and determination. The battle was far from over, but for the first time, Earth had shown the Empire that they were not helpless. They had fought back, and the Empire was beginning to realize that this was not going to be an easy conquest. "Prepare for the next phase," Dr. Carter said, her voice calm but filled with purpose. "We've only just begun." The surprise move by Earth's resistance had caught the Galactic Empire off guard. For the first time, the humans had shown their ability to fight back, and that was something Vrylock, the Empire's ruthless commander, could not ignore. His once unshakable confidence began to falter. The humans had disrupted his fleet's communication systems, causing chaos and confusion. It was a small victory, but it had been enough to give Earth a fighting chance. Vrylock paced back and forth on the bridge of his flagship. His officers scrambled to repair the damaged systems, but there was no denying the fact that they had lost control. If only for a moment, the humans had proven that they could strike at the heart of the Empire. Now Vrylock was determined to end this resistance before it grew any stronger. "We will not be humiliated by these creatures," Vrylock said coldly, glaring at his officers. "Prepare the fleet for a full-scale assault. Earth will learn that defiance comes with consequences." On Earth, the world's leaders were still in a state of shock. The disruption to the Empire's fleet had given humanity hope, but they knew that this was just the beginning. The Empire would retaliate, and they would retaliate hard. There was no doubt that Earth's survival was on the line. Dr. Elena Carter sat in a secure command center, analyzing the Empire's next moves. She had been working nonstop, coordinating with military leaders and scientists around the globe. The first step had been successful, but they couldn't rest on their laurels. They needed to keep fighting and find a way to level the playing field. "Time is running out," Dr. Carter said to her team. "The Empire won't wait long to strike back. We need to make sure that we're ready for whatever they throw at us." Captain Ryan Hall, who had led the special operations team on the Empire's ship, was now back on Earth, recovering from his dangerous mission. His team had completed their objectives, but he knew that the battle was far from over. The Empire would not give up easily, and Earth's resources were limited. Every moment counted. "We've made them nervous, but that's not enough," Captain Hall said. "We need to hit them harder, and we need to do it fast." Dr. Carter agreed. She had one more card to play, one last weapon that could give humanity a fighting chance. But it was risky. It could backfire, and the consequences of failure would be catastrophic. Still, they had no choice. They had to take the fight to the Empire, and this weapon was their best hope. Meanwhile, the Empire's fleet was preparing for their next move. Vrylock's ships had been repaired, and his forces were ready for action. He was determined to make Earth pay for their defiance. The Empire's ships began to move into position, their weapons charged and ready to strike. On the surface of Earth, military forces around the world braced for impact. They had already seen the Empire's power and knew that the coming battle would be the most important fight of humanity's existence. Governments had mobilized, and every available soldier and fighter jet was placed on high alert. As the first wave of the Empire's fleet descended upon Earth, the skies above became filled with the hum of incoming ships. The sheer size of the invasion was staggering. The Empire's ships were massive, their technology far beyond anything Earth had ever seen. Yet, despite the overwhelming odds, the humans were not afraid. Dr. Carter's weapon, the disruptor pulse, had proven effective in disrupting the Empire's communication systems. Now, she hoped it would do the same with their weapon systems. Her team was in position, ready to fire it once more. This time, however, the stakes were higher. If they failed, it could mean the end of the battle, and the end of humanity's fight for survival. Captain Hall's team had also been deployed, this time with a more dangerous mission: to sabotage the Empire's weapon systems directly. They were to board one of the Empire's ships and plant explosives in key areas, hoping to disable their offensive capabilities. The risk was immense, but if they succeeded, it could turn the tide of the battle. As the Empire's fleet launched its first volley of attacks, Earth's forces retaliated with everything they had. Fighter jets soared into the sky, and missiles fired from the surface, but the Empire's ships were nearly invulnerable to their attacks. Still, the humans fought with everything they had. They weren't just fighting for their planet, they were fighting for their future, for their children, and for the survival of their species. The Empire's first wave struck the Earth's surface with terrifying power, but the humans were prepared. The disruptor pulse fired once more, hitting the Empire's fleet with a devastating blow. Communication systems faltered again, and for a moment, the Empire's ships were disoriented. It was enough. Earth's forces used that moment of weakness to strike back, launching a powerful counterattack. Captain Hall's team had infiltrated the Empire's ship and successfully planted the explosives. The resulting explosion caused massive damage to the Empire's flagship, further disorienting their forces. Vraylock watched in disbelief as his fleet began to fall apart. Earth had done it. They had fought back, and they had forced the Empire into a position where they were no longer in control. The Empire was still strong, but the humans had shown that they were not to be underestimated. "This is not over," Vraylock muttered, his face twisted with rage. "But it will be soon." The battle for Earth had reached a critical point. The Galactic Empire's fleet was regrouping, but their forces were no longer as confident as they had been. Earth's resistance had shown them that the humans would not be easily defeated. Vraylock, the Empire's commander, had underestimated the strength of humanity, and now he found himself facing a planet that refused to surrender. The Empire's flagship, a colossal warship, was heavily damaged, and communication between the Empire's ships was still unstable. Vraylock could feel the pressure mounting. The Empire had always been known for its overwhelming strength, but now, Earth had become a problem they couldn't solve so easily. "We cannot afford any more setbacks," Vraylock growled, his voice filled with frustration. "Launch the second wave. This time, we crush them." On Earth, Dr. Elena Carter's team was still working around the clock. The disruptor pulse that had been so successful in slowing down the Empire's fleet was now being fine-tuned. It had only bought them a momentary advantage, but that moment was crucial. The humans had used that time to strengthen their defenses and prepare for the next phase of the battle. "We have one more chance," Dr. Carter said, her voice calm yet determined. "We need to make sure the next strike hits harder than the last." Captain Ryan Hall, leading the Special Operations Team, was preparing for another dangerous mission. He knew that the Empire would come with everything they had. Earth's military had done all they could, but this battle was about more than just weapons and strategy. It was about the will to survive, and humanity's strength had been proven time and time again. "We have to stop them before they can launch their full attack," Captain Hall said. "If we fail, Earth will be defenseless. We've come too far to turn back now." The humans had been pushed to the brink, but they had not given up. Their resistance had inspired people all over the planet. Soldiers, scientists, and civilians alike had come together, working in unison to protect their home. Earth's survival had become a shared cause, and every person was determined to do their part. As the Empire prepared to launch its second wave of attacks, the skies above Earth darkened. The Empire's massive ships loomed overhead, their weapons charged and ready. The Earth's military forces were ready for the fight, but they knew they were outgunned. They had to rely on the technology Dr. Carter had developed, as well as the courage of their people, to win this battle. Vraylock's fleet began its descent toward Earth's surface. His ships were massive, each one capable of devastating entire cities with a single strike. But the humans were not intimidated. Earth's defenses had been fortified, and the resistance had planned for this moment. The first wave of the Empire's ships fired their weapons, unleashing a barrage of laser fire and missiles toward Earth's cities. The ground shook as the first explosions rocked the planet, but Earth's forces were prepared. They fired back with everything they had, launching missiles and fighter jets into the sky to engage the invaders. In the chaos of battle, Captain Hall's team infiltrated one of the Empire's smaller ships. Their mission was simple but dangerous: plant explosives in key systems and disable the ship's weapons before it could retaliate. The team moved quickly, knowing that every second counted. They'd reached the control room and planted the explosives, but before they could leave, alarms blared throughout the ship. The Empire's forces had detected their presence. "We need to move now," Captain Hall ordered, leading his team down the corridors toward the escape pods. The Empire's soldiers were closing in, but the team was determined to make it out alive. They had completed their mission, and now they just needed to survive. Meanwhile, Dr. Carter's team activated the enhanced disruptor pulse once more, targeting the Empire's flagship. The pulse hit the ship with incredible force, causing a temporary blackout in its systems. For a few precious moments, the flagship was vulnerable. Earth's forces seized the opportunity to launch their most powerful attack yet. The Earth's weapons struck the Empire's flagship with pinpoint accuracy, causing massive damage. The Empire's ship was disoriented, its weapons offline, and its communications system scrambled. Vrilok was furious. He could feel the tide of battle turning against him. "This is not over," Vrilok said through gritted teeth, slamming his fist onto the console in front of him. "We will not let these humans stand in our way." But on Earth, the resistance was growing stronger with every passing moment. The people of Earth, united in their determination to survive, were pushing back with everything they had. The Empire had underestimated them, and now they were paying the price. Captain Hall and his team managed to escape the Empire's ship just before it exploded, the massive blast sending shockwaves through space. Earth had struck a decisive blow, but the war was far from over. There would be more battles to come, and the Empire would not stop until it had achieved its goal. But for now, Earth had proven that it would not be easily defeated. As the dust settled, Dr. Carter stood before her team, looking out at the destruction. There was still much work to be done, but Earth had shown that it could stand up to the might of the Galactic Empire. The fight was not over, but humanity had made one thing clear: they would never give up. "We've got their attention," Dr. Carter said, her voice filled with resolve. "And now we finish this." The battle was far from over. Earth had taken its first steps toward defeating the Galactic Empire, but the invaders were relentless. The sky still carried the smoke of countless explosions, and the hum of Earth's defenses could be heard all around. Yet humanity refused to back down. In the aftermath of the attack on the Empire's flagship, Earth's military leadership gathered in a secure war room, far from the front lines. Dr. Elena Carter, Captain Ryan Hall, and other key figures in the defense effort stood around a table, staring at the large digital map of the planet and the Empire's fleet. Their faces were a mixture of exhaustion and determination. "The disruptor pulse gave us a good window, but we can't rely on it forever," Dr. Carter said, her voice steady, though her eyes betrayed the strain of endless hours spent working. "We need to find a way to make this permanent." Captain Hall nodded. "The Empire's not going to sit back and lick their wounds. They're planning something big, and we need to be ready." The Empire's counterattack was already forming, a new wave of ships moving toward Earth. Vrilok, the Empire's ruthless commander, had not forgotten his mission. His fleet was regrouping, preparing to launch an all-out assault to wipe Earth off the map. But Earth was far from defenseless. The people who had fought back against the first wave were more united than ever, their resolve stronger than ever before. From cities to villages, every human knew they had one goal: survival. "We've got to hit them where it hurts," Captain Hall said, a fierce determination in his eyes. "We know their weaknesses now. We can exploit them." Dr. Carter turned to her computer, quickly analyzing the data collected from the previous battle. "We've discovered one significant flaw. The Empire's fleet relies heavily on their flagship for control. If we can take that down once and for all, we'll throw their entire coordination into chaos." It was a risky plan, but it was the only option they had. The flagship was the heart of the Empire's power, and without it, the invaders would be scattered. They had to make sure the next strike counted. Meanwhile, on the front lines, the Empire was preparing to attack. Vrilok's ships were already on the move, their weapons charging up as they approached Earth's atmosphere. The final battle was fast approaching. "Deploy the second wave," Vrilok ordered. His voice was cold, but there was a flicker of doubt in his eyes. The humans had proven resilient. He had not expected such resistance, but now, Earth would feel the full force of the Empire. Back on Earth, Captain Hall and his team were preparing for their most dangerous mission yet. They had one chance to stop the flagship and cripple the Empire's fleet. With Dr. Carter's help, they had found a way to infiltrate the flagship's defenses. Their goal was to plant an EMP device in the ship's control center, disabling its ability to communicate and coordinate the entire fleet. "This is our best shot," Captain Hall said to his team. "We go in, we plant the device, and we get out. Simple as that." But nothing about the mission was simple. The Empire's flagship was heavily guarded, its systems were complex, and the Empire's soldiers were relentless. Every step they took would be a dangerous one, but they had no choice. As they boarded their small transport shuttle, the tension in the air was palpable. Each member of the team knew the risks. There was a good chance they wouldn't make it back, but they were all ready to sacrifice everything for Earth's survival. The shuttle entered the atmosphere, flying low to avoid detection. They had to reach the flagship undetected if they were to succeed. The mission was the only hope Earth had of winning this war. Inside the flagship, Vrylock stood in his command center, watching the progress of his fleet on the monitors. His confidence had returned. Earth had struck hard, but it had only delayed the inevitable. Soon, they would be wiped out. It was just a matter of time. But as he glanced at the data, a sudden alert flashed on his screen. A small unknown vessel had entered the flagship's perimeter. Vrylock's eyes narrowed. "Bring up the defenses," he ordered, already suspecting what was happening. He knew that the humans had been capable of surprising him before, but this time they wouldn't catch him off guard. As Captain Hall's shuttle approached the flagship, the team could feel the weight of the moment. This was it. There was no turning back. "We're almost there," Captain Hall said, his voice calm but firm. "Stay focused." The shuttle passed through a gap in the enemy's defenses, and the team moved quickly, landing just outside the flagship's hangar bay. They disembarked, weapons ready, and began moving toward their objective. They had to hurry. The Empire's fleet was closing in on Earth, and time was running out. The fate of the planet rested in their hands. Captain Hall led the team through the halls of the flagship, silently moving past patrols and security checkpoints. Every corner they turned brought them closer to their goal. The EMP device was their last chance. If they could disable the flagship, they could end the war. But they weren't alone. As they reached the control center, an alarm sounded, signaling that the Empire had discovered their presence. They were too late. The Empire's forces were closing in. "This is it," Captain Hall said. "We finish this, or we don't make it out." The door to the control center slid open, revealing the heart of the flagship. They had no time to waste. The mission had reached its final moments. The countdown had begun. In the heart of the flagship, Captain Hall and his team stood face to face with the final challenge. The control center. They had made it this far, but the Empire's soldiers were closing in on them, and time was running out. Every second mattered. Captain Hall took a deep breath. "We plant the EMP device, we get out, and Earth has a chance." His voice was calm, but the tension was clear. His team moved quickly to set the device in place. Every step felt like an eternity. The security systems around them buzzed, the sound of distant footsteps growing louder. They didn't have much time. As they worked, a blaring alarm suddenly sounded across the flagship. The Empire had found them. Their mission, which had once seemed like a well-planned strike, was now a desperate scramble to finish what they had started. The fate of Earth rested on this one moment. "Move faster," Captain Hall shouted, his voice rising with urgency. The EMP device, a small but powerful tool, was the only chance they had. It would send a shockwave through the flagship's systems, shutting down its communication network and throwing the Empire's fleet into chaos. If it worked, Earth would have a fighting chance. If not, Earth would be lost. The team worked in perfect sync, their years of training and camaraderie paying off. Dr. Carter was the first to set the device in place. She quickly connected the wires, her hand steady despite the noise and pressure. With a final click, the device was active. "We're done," Dr. Carter said, her voice tight but confident. "Now, we get out." But as they turned to leave, the door to the control room slammed open. Vrelok, the Empire's ruthless commander, stood in the doorway, flanked by a dozen armed soldiers. His expression was cold, filled with fury. "You think you can stop me?" Vrelok sneered, his voice echoing through the room. "You are nothing but insects to the Empire." Captain Hall didn't flinch. "We've already won." Vrelok's eyes flashed with anger, but before he could react, Dr. Carter activated the EMP device. A massive pulse of energy shot out from the device, filling the room with a blinding light. The ship shuddered as its systems went dark. The communication channels fell silent. The Empire's fleet was disconnected, scattered without a central command. The effect was immediate. Vrelok's confident expression faltered as he realized what had happened. His flagship, once a symbol of his power, was now crippled. His soldiers looked at him, confusion spreading through their ranks. For a brief moment, Vrelok seemed to lose control. "No, this can't be happening," he shouted, slamming his fist against the wall. But the damage was done. Earth had made its stand, and the Empire had failed. Captain Hall's voice cut through the chaos. "It's over, Vrelok. The Empire is done." Vrelok's eyes narrowed in defeat, but he knew he could not win now. He turned on his heel, ordering his troops to retreat. The Empire had underestimated Earth, and now they were paying the price. The team didn't hesitate. They sprinted for the exit, their path clear. They had succeeded, but the battle wasn't over yet. They had to get back to Earth before the Empire regrouped. As they made their way back to the shuttle bay, the flagship began to implode. The EMP's effects had destabilized the ship's core systems, and explosions rang out in every direction. The flagship, the heart of the Empire's power, was falling apart. But even as the ship crumbled around them, Captain Hall's thoughts were focused on the task ahead. They had one mission left: to get back to Earth and warn their people of the Empire's retreat. The shuttle lifted off just as the flagship began to break apart. They could see the massive structure behind them, its lights flickering and its hull cracking under the pressure. Earth had survived the Empire's first wave. They had shown the invaders what humanity was capable of. As the shuttle sped toward Earth, the crew allowed themselves a brief moment of relief. They had done it. The war was far from over, but they had delivered a crushing blow to the Empire. The fight for Earth would continue, but now humanity stood stronger, united, and more determined than ever. Back on Earth, people were already celebrating. The news spread like wildfire. The Empire had been defeated. But the war was far from over. The survivors knew that the Empire would be back, but now they were ready. Humanity had proven that they could face the greatest threats the universe could throw at them and come out victorious. Captain Hall and his team landed on Earth, greeted by a crowd of cheering citizens. They had saved the world. The victory was theirs, but it was also the victory of every man, woman, and child who had stood up against the invaders. And as Earth celebrated its victory, Captain Hall couldn't help but smile. The Galactic Empire had made a fatal mistake. They had underestimated humanity. And now, they would never make that mistake again.